Okay, let's get into it. This is the Tax Liens Exposed Home Study course. This is module number 4, Tax Lien Strategies. All right, so here's the thing when we talk about this, right, and it's apparent from my teaching all over the country and actually all over the world at this point. That one size does not fit all when we're talking about investing. Some people are more interested in having interest on their money as opposed to real estate acquisition. That's fine. You know, it's either or. Some people want to have both, but at the same time, very often people are going to favor one or the other. So an interest strategy or a redemption strategy would be one for more long term, and then the acquisition can be for more of a short term strategy. At the same time, the thing is that you have to look at the redemption periods. So the longer the redemption period, the more long term you can look at it as, and the shorter the redemption period, the more short term. Right, so that's the thing is that, and to understand that tax liens can be used as a wonderful vehicle to find motivated sellers, and also to prospect for foreclosure properties. It's just it has all of these pieces, right? But just when you're purchasing the tax liens for interest, and you're making up to 36%, you have to understand that a very strong. It's the strongest, most low-risk investment on earth. It's just absolutely fantastic. And if you can also look for liens that have an existing mortgage, and understand that the bank is highly unlikely to lose the property over a tax lien. That's if the bank has been escrowing that tax. But at the same time, there are scenarios where there is a mortgage, and the bank hasn't been escrowing the tax, and then that situation, it's more likely that you can get the property. So, but the most important thing, instead of arguing this point, and then everybody has their own level of experience with it. Is that you have to actually buy the tax lien in order to do any of this. So it's up for debate. So I like to work strategy that gives me the potential to get the highest interest and the potential to get as big a shot at the property as I possibly can get. So let's move on with this, right? So some people will say that if you look for liens that are on commercial properties and developments, that they will redeem quickly. Well, they can. It just depends on where they are, and in terms of when I say where they are, what county, what state, that kind of thing. Typically, the if it's a high-end commercial property, it will redeem. It will redeem faster. So typically, that would be a redemption strategy as opposed to a non-redemption strategy. Remember, redemption strategy is if we want all of our money back plus interest, and a non-redemption strategy is if what we're after is indeed the property. All right. So why would somebody choose a short-term tax lien vehicle? Well, some states have this minimum interest percentage that guarantee a high rate of return, right, up to 5% instantly. Now, and it's a safe, guaranteed investment in a very unstable market, which is where we are. This turns into a very quick way to flip money in and out, each time earning the high interest rate. Now, we're going to talk about then the states, right, that are long term, right, where it's better for long term investments. But at the same time, understand that some of those states actually are pretty good for short term, right? Long term can be a very big payoff, up to 36% and more, right, percentage. You want to make sure when you're doing this that you can commit your money for the length of time of that redemption period, right? So because when you're buying these things, you just can't easily pull your money back out. So let's talk about the state by state comparison. When we talk about things that are best for long term, we see Illinois, we see Iowa, Maryland, Florida, Mississippi, and Wyoming. Right? We talked about these things, and these are all excellent long-term states. Excellent long-term states. What makes Illinois so good long-term is this 36% locked in. Right? So if you're thinking about it, it's a locked-in rate. It's 36%. It is standalone the highest in the country as a tax lien. So you buy the lien once, right? You're getting 30%, 36% a year. After the 2-year period is up, either you're going to get 36% a year on your money, right? Or you're going to get the property. You can apply for the deed after 2 years. So this is a wonderful long-term scenario, even if what you're doing is working a non-redemption strategy. Even if you want the property, right? Is that you have to understand you're making 36% a year on your money as you're hoping that you'll get the property, right? So there are situations that it's more and more likely to get the property, and situations where it's more and more likely that you won't get the property. But either way, when you're talking about a 36% interest, that's a phenomenal rate of interest. It's fantastic to do that on a long-term basis, right? So Illinois is one of the tops in my book for long-term strategies of buying, right? So you have that. Illinois, 36%. So when you're thinking long term, you can think that. Iowa also long term on the 24%, 2% a month. You see the redemption period is a little under 2 years, right? So Iowa, again, a long term state. It's a wonderful state for tax liens, and I like it as a long-term state. Just again, what we talked about. Just be aware of that. Bidding down the ownership scenario, right? So Maryland is good for long term because it's got the 24% a year, but it's also good. Maryland is also good on the short term because the redemption period can be as low as 6 months. I don't have Maryland named as one of the best short-term states. That's okay. But as we speak about this, and this is why we have this dialogue, is that Maryland really has a foot in both categories. It's an excellent short-term environment because of the 6 months redemption. It's an excellent long-term environment for the 2 years redemption. It depends on the county. If it's a 6 month redemption county, well, that's great for short term because there's nothing like getting 24% in 6 months, right? I mean, that's 48% a year, right? If you do that, if you re-up every 6 months, so that's Maryland for a short-term environment is fantastic. For a long-term environment, Maryland is quite fantastic as well, because if you get the 2 years, okay, redemption period combined with the 24%, okay, you've got something that's also a fantastic combination, right? I would stay away from the 6% counties. Why would you go to a 6% county when you could go up to 24%? So that's what you have to look at, right? So let's go to one of the other states, and this is an interesting state, is Florida. The reason why Florida is an interesting state is that it's here as far as one of our long-term favorites, and it is, right? Because you get that 18% a year, and you've got that 2 year redemption period, and it's a wonderful long-term strategy state. But at the same time, what you have in Florida on a short-term piece is that there's a 5% minimum return. That even if you're bidding down on the interest rate, and the interest rate goes down, as long as it doesn't go down to zero, even if it goes down to 1%, you still get 5%. But watch this. If you buy, and this is what I love about this in Florida, if you buy toward the end of the redemption period, if you're able to do this on one of the over-the-counter sales or whatever, if you buy toward one of the end of the redemption periods, and somebody, let's say they redeem this in one day, right? They redeem, the taxpayer pays, you buy the tax lien for $1,000, and the taxpayer redeems it the very next day. You get that 5%. Well, that 5% a day comes out to be a staggering 1,825% annualized. That's right, 1,825% annualized. Right, so when you look at it that way, and that's, when we look at these things and we start to game the system, there are little pieces of each state and different counties that we use to our advantage. That is one of the huge advantages in Florida. And most people don't look at Florida as a short-term state, but this is one of the pieces. If you work that strategy specifically, would make Florida a very, very attractive and very lucrative short-term environment for you. All right, Mississippi. Again, wonderful long-term, 18% a year, right? A 2 year redemption period. Again, ease in applying for the deed. It's a it's a great state for that. But the thing is that in Mississippi, it's just the overbid, right, or the premium. The premium doesn't come back to you, so I would have to stay out of premium or overbid scenarios in Mississippi, unless you were darn sure that you were going to get the property. Otherwise, you're not going to get that overbid back, right? So you just want to stay away from it on that point. But Mississippi is a wonderful long-term environment. Wyoming, same thing. Interest rate 18%. And it's very long term. When you say, well, it's a 4-year redemption period. Well, 4-year redemption period, you've got to make sure that you're going to have that you don't need the use of that money within 4 years, because it's going to take a 4-year turn to satisfy that redemption period, right? So that's that's it. So it's really not a fast shot in the arm, and that's why it's up there for long term. But 18%, very secure, long term, wonderful, right? Very high interest rate, 18%. So you have all these pieces. So let's move into the short-term interest investing. What's good for short-term? D.C., New Jersey, we've got Indiana, we've got Nevada. So D.C., why District of Columbia? Why short-term for D.C.? Well, the reason why, if you remember from earlier, is that the redemption period can be 6 months. So here you've got a scenario where you're getting 18% a year in 6 months. So 18% a year in 6 months is really 36% a year. And it's also short term because here it's a very fast burn. You'll know within 6 months as to whether or not you're going to get the property. That's the longest that it's going to take. So this is what I love about it. All right. So is that this is one of the places that if you're looking to get the turn on the money faster, or if you just happen to have a short attention span, right? So this is the 6-month redemption period. So that means at the end of that redemption period, that 6 months, either you will have your 18% interest and all of your money back, or you'll have the property, right? So this is a 6-month period of time. It's fantastic. That is truly a short-term strategy. So that's the piece on DC. So now we talk about long-term versus short-term. Sometimes people get confused. So I like DC for that for that point. And here's the thing too. Nevada is short-term. It's short-term because the foreclosure in Nevada is very easy. Okay, compared to some of the other states. So you look at it. It's 12% a year. The redemption period is 2 years. But Nevada, okay, in addition to the easier foreclosure process, will also let you buy toward the end of the redemption period a little more easily as well. So meaning that if the redemption period is 2 years and you can buy toward the end of the redemption period and there's only 2 months left on that, okay, so that gives you a fantastic ability to turn this into a short-term win, right, on Nevada. Indiana has a couple of things. It's got the redemption period of a year. You've got this high interest rate of 25%, right? And this interest rate on the overbid is 10%. So the thing is, in Indiana, also you can buy toward the end of the of the redemption period, and you have this 10% interest that you can get on the overbid. That 10% added to the 25% is huge, right? So you get 25% interest and then 10% on the overbid, and this is one of the places where you're kind of like gaming the system. So you can do that in Indiana. You can, which is specific to Indiana, with making that 10% on the overbid with 25% a year. Nevada has those positives, right? And then we talked about Florida a little bit, but I'm gonna come back to that in a second. Let's look at New Jersey. New Jersey has some, excellent short-term possibilities as well, because you can get in there, okay, and buy closer to the end of the redemption period. That's why it's down there as being, a great short-term environment. Again, 18% a year, 2% on the redemption period, but you can buy toward the end of the redemption period. And I'm going to talk to you about Texas. Texas is a redeemable deed state, right? Texas is a redeemable deed state. It is not a lien state. Texas is a state that actually looks, feels, acts, and smells like a regular lien state, but it's redeemable deed. And Texas is not on the list of liens, okay, because it's not a lien state; it's a deed state, but it's redeemable deed. And Texas is 25% on the redeemable deeds is the return, and that's every 6 months. So that's and the 6 month is the redemption period for non-agricultural property. Agricultural is 2 years, and it's also 6 months then, and if it's not a primary residence. So anything that's not a primary residence that's non-agricultural is a 6 month redemption period in Texas. So you've got then 25% coming to you each 6 months. That is a wonderful short-term environment. 25% in 6 months, right? So you've got DC, which has that 6 month turn, okay, and you've got Texas, which is this 6 month turn, and remember we have Florida, and this is all about like looking at something differently, right? And we have Florida, which has that 5% that you get guaranteed, and understand that you can in Florida buy very close to the end of the redemption period as well, and sometimes people redeem quickly in Florida. So if somebody redeems fast, and again, if they redeem in one day, you've got that 5% piece right there. And that 5% return in one day in Florida comes to 1,825% annualized. I don't know about you, but 1,825% sounds pretty darn good to me. Right? So those are the pieces. That's the difference between doing a long-term strategy, right, and then doing a short-term strategy. What we want you to know is that if your state doesn't offer the best return, right, go to a nearby state, go to another state, a state that you like the stats, right? You like what we talked about just now in Texas. Buy them in Texas. You like what we talked about in Florida, to be able to to do that 1 day turn and get the 5%. Well, let's figure out how we do that in Florida. If you like DC, because DC has that has 6 months, right? And also we have we've got Maryland. We've got all these pieces here, right? That make for a very attractive short-term investment, right? So just remember, right? If your state doesn't offer the best return, buy in a different state, right? We're going to discuss online buying in the next module. That's module number 5. And if you want to acquire the property, just remember you'll have to use the information a little differently than if you only want the highest interest rate, right? So this is very, very important, right? So in the next one, right, we'll talk about more about doing these things, about getting the property in module number 6. Having said that, we're done with this module. This is George Fuchs, Wealth Professors. Take good care. Make sure that you're out there making short-term money and making long-term wealth, and we'll see you on the next module. Bye for now.